Hello, everyone, and welcome back to RIFC Nation. I'm your host, Matt, and this is episode 8. If you're watching this on YouTube, please take a second to click that thumbs up button, give the video a like, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Remember, you can always find RIFC Nation on YouTube and your favorite podcast app like Spotify and Apple. I've got a few more firsts to talk about in this episode, and I'll give my take on RIFC's 0-0 draw versus the Charleston Battery. First clean sheet, first red card, and most felt by all, first home match in the rain. I'm fully dried out, and although a day later or two than normal, we had a third birthday in the household this weekend, so happy birthday to my little guy, Graham. I'm very excited to talk about this match and the performance as a whole that we saw from Rhode Island FC. My son and I got to the lots a little after 5 p.m., and the weather was interesting, to say the least. The clouds were rolling in and out, the wind was whipping, and occasionally, for a brief few minutes here and there, the sun came out, and it wasn't half bad. The wind did ruin our checker game, blew the checkers right off the table, so it is what it is. Typical Rhode Island weather. As it got closer to the time to head into the stadium, the clouds darkened and the rain started. I do have to say, when the rain rolled in, it felt like the temperature rose. So I thought it was actually pretty tolerable. So many other people out there might say otherwise, but I didn't really mind it being cold because I thought the rain kind of brought in a little bit of more warm air. At least that's my opinion. I was also very excited heading into this one, as this would be our first match in Section 12. And my son even wanted to march in with the Defiance, which was a great experience. I posted a short video on part of the walk-in on the YouTube channel, so make sure you check it out. When we finally got into our seats, the atmosphere was nothing short of outstanding. With just under 4,000 fans in the soaked stadium, it was loud from the first whistle till the last. The smoke from the flares looked even better and seemed to linger even longer in the wet and foggy air. I have to admit, going into this one, with the lot looking a little bit emptier and knowing the weather forecast, I was expecting the crowd to be maybe a little bit less than energetic than we've saw on the opener. But man, oh man, am I glad to be wrong. And it was really cool being at the front of Section 12, bouncing around on the front walkway there. Irvin and Kevin kind of leading charges too. It was cool to see. It was just a great atmosphere from the get. But let's get going on this one. It was the familiar 3-5-2 from Cano Smith with Jackson Lee in net. Gabriel Alves getting his first start. No Darce, Holstad, Quizera, Ibarra, Brito, McGlynn, Turnbull, Fuson, and Chico. With Chumesi, Smith, Doyle, Vang, Silvera, Messer, and Sadie available on the bench. As the first half started, I very much thought we were treading water, if you will, being right behind Jackson Lee's goal. We saw a lot of possession in and around the RIFC defensive box, and very similar to previous matches, the fouls started to add up early and often for this RIFC team, as highlighted by the Clay Holstad yellow card in the 4th minute. Jackson Lee, who was outstanding in this one, made his first of 6 saves in the 5th minute on a long-range effort from outside the box. And after that, the first half was just a series of battles, mostly in the middle of the field. And if you've listened to me at all, you know I've been crying out for some sort of presence and semblance of play in the middle, and we got it on Saturday night in Smithfield. Another point I feel I make on, just about every one of these episodes is how bad the officiating has been in the USL Championship. And I hate to sound like a broken drum, but you're going to hear a bit more of the same throughout this episode, as the man of the match might have very well been official Joshua Encarnacion, who blew that whistle 47 times for fouls, including 5 yellow cards and 1 red card. More on that a little later. I thought he really earned his paycheck, especially if the USL would be going by a pay-per-call model. I say that tongue-in-cheek, but man, for a sloppy, windy, rainy night, you would think 0 contact was allowed. For the record, Joshua, not all contact is a foul. I know you might think that, and your officiating showed that, but not all contact is a foul. Contact can occur in the beautiful game without there being a foul. USL Championship, USL officials, go watch this guy. He was awful. I did think that RIFC grew into the half as things got going, especially in the later stages of the first half, as we had a few long-range efforts, but just couldn't get the quality of service into good areas that we needed. Credit the battery for that battle in the midfield, though. Oh, and probably the wind and the rain. I'm sure that helps slow things down a bit. The first half saw the battery lead the possession battle with 58%. Each team had 4 shots, with 2 from the battery coming on target compared to 0 for RIFC. RIFC committed 15 fouls to the battery's 9, and Charleston had 3 corners with none for RIFC. As the second half started, I thought we really grew well into the game even more and started to be the team more on the front foot. We were getting on the ball more, getting the ball further up the pitch. Joe Brito had a good-looking chance in the 53rd minute after Chico won a free kick, but skied the shot from just outside the box a bit too high. This was off a really nice headed pass from Connor McGlynn off the free kick. It looked very training ground-esque to me. So good to see that. I like the way we attack set pieces and corners, so it was good to see that kind of come in. Brito was back at it in the 65th minute where he rocketed a ball off the crossbar. This was by far the best opportunity of the match, in my opinion. And this was also Brito's best match in the amber and blue. I know reading through the socials and the Defiance Discord, there have been a lot of fan heat on Brito and Ibarra, in particular for the lack of production in the midfield. But Brito in particular really stepped up in this one, especially in that second half. I thought he was a catalyst for what we were doing, what we were trying to do. And I thought he just played really, really well. The match could have taken a much bigger turn for the worse in the 70th minute, as Connor McGlynn, already on a yellow, was shown his second yellow and the red card on what I thought was 100% a 50-50 challenge. It was very close to our end, and it was a pass that was clipped up high, and McGlynn and the battery player jumped up at the exact same time. McGlynn is a mountain of a man, and his size advantage bodied the battery player off the ball. McGlynn headed the ball away. There was no arm swing, no extra push in the back, no leverage created by jumping. Just a big guy and a little guy jumping at the same time, and size doing its thing. If you listen to Kevin's Quahog Corner on Twitter or X, I had the exact same sentiments as him. This was a 50-50 ball. I don't even think it was a foul, let alone a second yellow and a sending off. But going back, we had that man in the middle, Mr. Encarnacion, and his very, very, very short whistle leading to any contact being a foul saw Connor McGlynn get that second yellow and eventually be the red card to send him off. And like I said, I just think this was a ridiculous decision. I know it's kind of divided some RIFC fans online or in the Discord and, kind of on socials, but it just wasn't even a foul for me. It's just 2 guys going for the ball. It's 50-50. The bigger guy won. How do you call that? How do you give a yellow? You can hate me, you can at me, but never a foul for me. The way I look at it is trying to look at it the other way. If that foul is, kind of called against the battery, I'm looking at it as, oof, we got a lucky break there. So not a foul, not a yellow card, not a red card. Mr. Encarnacion, you suck as an official. We'll keep it at that. This could have very well been the piece to sink the ship, but I am proud to say it had quite the opposite effect. I thought our boys looked better going down to 10 men. We continued to push forward. We continued to attack and continued to generate chances. The battery weren't done either, however, and Jackson Lee's biggest moment came in stoppage time on that massive diving save. And I'll talk a bit more about him in a few. But the final stats for this one, the possession gap was closed a bit in the second half as Charleston took 55% for the match. We were outshot by just 11-10, with 6 on target for the battery, but only the 1 shot on target for RIFC. 2 big chances for Charleston, 1 for RIFC. 77% pass completion for the guests to 72% for us. 25 previously mentioned fouls for us to 22 on Charleston. 47 fouls. I'm just going to say it again. 47 fouls, Mr. Encarnacion. 5 corners for Charleston and just 1 for RIFC. Overall, these were pretty even metrics, and in my eyes, this was the best performance of the season by Rhode Island FC. We've seen flashes of good, and we've seen flashes of bad from this team, but Saturday night was a complete 90-minute effort. We did, kind of struggle to get into it at first, but the effort was there, and we kind of weathered the storm in the early goings. I've often talked about, can we get Chico the service he needs? We don't have a number 10 on this team, and that's going to be an issue just kind of ongoing. The service wasn't there on Saturday night, but I thought the fight in every other aspect was. I was proud of this team after this one. This was a gritty 0-0 draw versus last season's Eastern Conference finalist and a team in damn good form to start this season after we just got battered down in Tampa. I know some people will disagree, but with the weather forecast in mind, if you had offered me this 0-0 draw as a pre-match result, I would have taken it all day. Much easier in this one to pick my top three performers, even despite, no goals. Number three for me was Joe Brito. He had a full 90-minute performance, a 6.7 match rating on FOTMob. Brito took 2 shots, completed 17 passes, created 1 chance, had 4 touches in the opposing box, 1 successful dribble, 2 passes into the final third, 2 interceptions, 4 defensive actions, 3 recoveries, 7 duels won, and was fouled 4 times. This was a game of fouls, as we mentioned, but Brito was getting a lot of slack from our RIFC fans, and I think he showed why Coach Cano Smith has had such, positivity with him and such confidence in him that he's been in that starting 11 every match. He was much more progressive than he has been in the first 3 matches and put in the type of performance we've been needing in the middle of the field. We would like to see a little bit more service from him and link up between him and Chico and him and Fuzon, but hopefully this can boost his confidence and spur him on to bigger and better performances. At number 2, I've got the Defiance man of the match, Gabriel Alves. I don't want to take anything away from Alves' performance by not giving him my top spot because he was great in his first start for the club. Absolutely unreal numbers that I'm going to read through in a second. Even stopped and took a picture with my son and I with the oar in hand for winning the Defiance man of the match. He was very excited, so it was really cool to see that energy that he had post-match. A 7.5 match rating on FOTMob, completed 25 passes on 47 touches, 2 successful dribbles, 11 passes into the final third, 4 accurate long balls, 1 clearance, 2 interceptions, 3 defensive actions, 4 recoveries, and 5 duels won. Mr. Fill the stat sheet, Gabriel Alves, was unbelievable on this night. He was everywhere, and a defender playing that progressively under Coach Cano Smith's system is going to be a major benefit going forward. He helps bring several counters, and I think he's going to carve his spot into that starting 11 as a regular. But none other at number 1 for me is none other than Mr. Jackson Lee and Jackson Lee's mustache. The Aussie notched a 7.5 match rating on FOTMob, had 6 saves, none bigger than the outstanding diving effort in stoppage time, 12 recoveries, acted as a sweeper on 1 occasion, completed 17 passes, and 9 accurate deep balls, all on 50 touches. His distribution is unreal, and his shot stopping looked absolutely insane. He commanded his box very well, looked very comfortable on the ball, even in some played out the back situations that got a little tight. And he just had a real presence out there. If Koke is out for any extended period of time, we are more than well equipped with Jackson Lee between the sticks. Now, I know Koke is our first ever signing, and he's our club captain, but Lee's distribution and shot stopping has looked great. I know it's early days. I know it's a small sample size, but could we eventually see some competition or even a true fight for the number 1 shirt? Let me know in the comments. I think Lee is quite an option to have, and at least we have those options. And Jackson Lee is only 22 years old. Koke obviously will not be here for the long run. Lee nowhere near his prime as far as keepers go yet, but I think he will only continue to improve with more playing time and will become a huge asset for this club, whether it be, being here for the long term or eventually, as soccer goes and football being a business moved on. He's showing what his worth is, and I think he is at least at best right now a great backup option, but could definitely command some real competition for that number 1 shirt. So how did I do? Was your top 3 any different? If so, comment, let me know who you had and what order you had, or let me know why or why not I got mine right or wrong. Next up, I'll turn to the post-match social posts starting on Reddit. Comet Pants, awesome username, by the way. What a game by Jackson Lee. Love seeing our D bounce back, and the team as a whole played 2 strong halves of football. We weathered, no pun intended, McGlynn's second yellow. The drums came through great on the broadcast. Massive shout out to those at Burn cheering on our guys. And the bottom line, we snagged a point against a formidable foe in Charleston. Hashtag up the tag. Very well said. Glad that the drums sounded good on the broadcast because they were so awesome in person. 101955 Banu said 47 fouls. Referee clearly felt he was the most important person on the match. I gave you my take on that. Mr. Encarnacion, definitely the star of the show. He was an eyes on me official and wanted everyone to know it, but that's going to be what we're up against week in and week out. Yankee Sullivan writes in Charleston Battery, more like Charleston Submarines, because they sure like taking dives. Hey, yo. But seriously, all things considered, RI did well. I'll go with your last point there with RI did well. I did hear some cries throughout the stands about dives from this Charleston team, but I didn't think it was any much worse, or I thought it was far less worse than the Tampa team. I thought the Tampa team looked like the U.S. dive team. You even ran near them and they hit the deck. I had a real problem watching that team with their style and how they played. Charleston, I thought at least tried to play and tried to look like it was some kind of semblance of football. Didn't think they dove so much. I do think it was very physical play. I think the weather and it being wet kind of contributed to it. But for me, Tampa was by far the worst stylistically opponent we've seen with the diving so far. R.A. Healy writes in with his weekly 3 bullet points, starting with number 1, no set piece goal allowed. Progress. Defense was overall much better. Thought Alves played especially well and hope he stays in the team. I'm still concerned about the midfield. Thought Ibarra was better tonight and spacing was too spread out. Many times we would spray it to the wing back. Big improvement here, but they'd have no midfielder to combine with. I wonder if playing our best midfielder in the midfield rather than center back could help here. Ref/weather. While these things are things we cannot control, they were both awful. Ref was the star of his own show, and I don't think I need to say anything more about the weather. Let's look at the first point there with Alves. I hope he stays in the team as well. I thought the midfield was better. Like I said, I do think Brito is good. I think Ibarra can still be better. But as you mentioned, we try to play wide and try to play out to the wing backs. But, like Healy mentioned, there's no midfielder in there to link up and create the triangle with the wing back, the midfielder, and either Fuson or Dequa, depending on what side it's on. So it would be good to get somebody else more involved. And to that last point of point number 2, I wonder if playing our best midfielder in midfield rather than center back could help. Yes, Clay Holstead needs to be up there. Hopefully the addition of Alves into the side will kind of help reshape the defense and maybe be able to help bump Clay up eventually. I think Colin Smith could also help with that, but we will have to wait and see there. Obviously, we need Clay on the pitch, and it kind of makes sense to use your best players in their favorite positions. And then the ref and the weather, we've beat that drum to almost senseless. That ref, I think, was worse than the weather. I could deal with the rain, I could deal with the wind, but that referee, not so much. Finally, on Reddit, D. Zimbowski adds, lots of people blaming the ref. Guilty. Sorry. But McGlynn made no play for the ball and straight up pushed the dude when already on a yellow. Total bonehead move. Most of our fouls were legit and kind of sloppy. Not a ton of direction from Kano. The players were constantly yelling to him, and he would just stand there. I don't know. I got some pushback on this one. I still think that McGlynn challenge is 50-50 at best. I think as far as players yelling to Kano, and he was just standing there. He adjusted as he could, and I think we came out of the halftime locker room in a much better place. So I get some question marks, D. Zimbowski, on what exactly you saw with those, but I'd love to have you comment or write in and clarify anything you want to. On Facebook, Jimmy Vang said RIFC started off slow, but second half they picked it up the pace. Goalies on both sides made crucial saves. And David McHugh Solera added good defense on both sides. Hard fought game. It was a very hard fought game and a well earned point. A big thank you to everyone who wrote in. If you'd like to share your thoughts on the next episode, you can find my posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and in the RIFC subreddit. Be on the lookout at the conclusion of each match and have your thoughts shared on RIFC Nation. Speaking of socials, I'm proud to announce the RIFC Nation Facebook group has now eclipsed, see what I did there, 300 members. If you haven't joined, make sure you do so today. You can find the link to join and the link to all of my social media accounts in this episode description. Click it, it'll bring you to a menu and you can follow them all. Next up for RIFC is a visit from Chico's old team as the Pittsburgh Riverhounds head to Burns Stadium on Saturday, April 13th at 7:30 p.m. with, hopefully, knock on wood, looks like much better weather in store. Unfortunately, it's going to be the first home match that I miss. I'll be in Florida with the family, but I'm looking forward to hearing the noise while watching, probably from my phone, undoubtedly in some crazy long line at Disney. The Riverhounds are currently the only team below us in the Eastern Conference table on 1 point. Their first 4 matches include a 1-0 loss at New Mexico in their opener, a 2-0 home defeat at the hands of Orange County SC, a 3-1 loss to Louisville City, and most recently, a 0-0 draw at home versus Tampa. With 6 goals conceded on the season and just 1 to their name, this is a match that RIFC must look to make a statement and get their first 3-pointer of the season. I think it's a very winnable game, and there will be goals. There needs to be goals. I'm working on a preview episode with a Pittsburgh group, and I love going live on my YouTube channel for those. So make sure you're subscribed to that channel to get the notification and join the live chat. If you comment in it, just say hi, ask a question, make some kind of talking point. I can pull it right up on screen. We'll interact with it as the episode goes on and hopefully get all those on air. I'm going to hold off right now on my score prediction for that match for the preview episode. So again, hit subscribe and stay tuned. But that will wrap things up for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please click that like and subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on a podcast app, please take a minute to leave a rating and review. 5 stars helps more listeners find the show. Click the link in the episode description and you'll be able to find all of my accounts and stay up to date with everything RIFC Nation. Thanks again for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Matt, and I'll see you next time. Up the tide.